Hello, my name is Adam and welcome back to my channel where I make a tabletop role-playing game from scratch on camera. And today I'm looking into a mechanic which I want to share with you guys to get some feedback. This is what I like to call my encounter engine, but that's probably not the name it'll have. The goal of my encounter engine is to serve one of my pillars. Mostly the building tension pillar, but I'm not too strict on categorizing the mechanics. The point at least is to make it easier for the GM to make and run encounters. But I've also come to a realization when it comes to my ability as a game designer. I can't bind myself to work too much. I'm only one person. This is just a hobby and not the only hobby I have either, so I can't make a tome of an RPG book and adventures and be able to playtest them. I could pay for it, of course, but currently I haven't even reached 1,000 subscribers, which reminds me that you should subscribe if you haven't yet, and maybe I'll eventually be able to make $3 a month on YouTube. The point is that I can't create everything alone, and even if I could, I don't want to. One thing I've noticed in the recent years is the consumerist thinking in many game companies. Having custom dice for your game makes it so that people have to invest a lot upfront to play your game. One D&D will probably have loot boxes and paywalls. They even sell you the same setting over and over again in a new format instead of trying to make things compatible with previous versions. And I don't want that. I want my game to be cheap, to be moldable so you can use it together with other games. I want my encounter engine to be versatile so you can make different encounters only from the few adventures I provide. It should allow you to make the stories you want to tell regardless of how you like to tell them. With these goals in mind, I have an idea on how this encounter engine will work. Cards. Have you ever seen those prompt cards where you have descriptions, where you pick 3 cards and try to string together a story? Well, I think they're pretty lame, but I want to expand upon that. Let's say you have cards with words. Large, swarm, rough terrain, deceitful. You can generate encounters by stringing these words together. A large swarm could be a swarm of bees merged together into a swarm monster. Or it could be 10 ogres chasing you through the forest. With the same cards you can build multiple different encounters, which again is one of my goals. The problem with this is that there's no rules attached. How do you stat a swarm of bees? How much harder is a large swarm rough terrain encounter contrary to only a large swarm encounter? That's where the deck system starts to fall apart. My card engine, though, aims to fix this. I've had this idea for a while, but not really thought too hard on it until now. What if you had Munchkin, but as an RPG? Threw you a curveball there, didn't I? For those of you who don't know, Munchkin is a card game where you try to be a Munchkin. What has always appealed to me with the game is that you stack a bunch of cards together and that becomes your character. Each card has a rule so they can operate alone, but put together you can become a communist ninja pirate with flippers of death. Now this is something I want to make in my game. Not the character creation, but the encounter creation. Each card will have a description which can give a nudge towards how the card should be played. Each card also has a set of rules that apply when the card is played. I like that you can reuse the cards for different encounters. If I make an adventure and make like 10 cards that make up all the encounters, then you have 10 cards to use for your own adventures, and even combine with other cards you already have. You can even change out a card during an encounter to change how it works. It's less work for me to produce and more content for you. What I really want to see happen is that we can build a community around this. With these cards, we could make a common language for building encounters. Someone could share an encounter setup where they ran a swarm rough terrain card to describe a goblin ambush in the woods. Halfway through the encounter, they swap out the swarm card with a bloodless card to describe how the majority of the goblins were slain and now the remaining goblins got angry. Sharing specific cards and how they are triggered makes it possible for others to run the same encounter only using the same cards and a few notes on a piece of paper. And hopefully people will start to design and theory craft around how to make new and exciting encounters, making some cool encounters with only a handful of cards. So with all of these good arguments for making a deck building game, how would it work? First of all, I got to say that this is a rough sketch of how I want things to work. But as I said, each card needs to have some rules. I want to split it up into effects and win conditions. Effects happen every round. The swarm card makes the enemy immune to flanking, being outnumbered, or similar things. Rough terrain makes it harder to move around. Deceitful makes it harder for the players to get correct information from an NPC. These things. Some effects also have special actions, like Bloodlust, which would deal some kind of damage to nearby targets if they're in range every round. Now, win conditions is where the meat of this encounter engine is. Every card has a win condition. It's currently a bad name for the mechanic, but the idea is that if the players manage to do a specific action or something similar, then the players win and the card is removed. The win condition is customized by the GM, so anything goes when it comes to how to deal with it. If you're swarmed by a group of goblins, then maybe scaring them or doing X amount of damage removes the card. Or maybe if you manage to plug the cave entrance where they crawl out of, then you also remove the card. I want there to be multiple win conditions, so the players can approach an encounter in multiple different ways. My current idea is that I have a set of questions that when asked determines if the card is removed, so that I somewhat can mitigate GM fiat. But it's currently such a rough sketch that I don't know how this will work yet. So in the end, I want an encounter to be a set of cards placed on the table. Each one describes what will happen next turn, and every round the players try to remove them. The GM doesn't just sit there and narrate what happens, but actively adds, removes, and switches out cards based on a set of rules I haven't thought of yet. and hopefully these cards can be reused in so many different combinations that people start to share encounters they've invented to further grow this game. So what do you think about this idea? Do you have any ideas for cards and rules? Maybe an RPG that has some similar mechanics? Leave a comment down below and let me know. And of course, like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this with your GM, they'll probably like it. See ya!